Okay,
Agree.
so now let's talk about your uh, your certification, your new CBAP certification. So tell us in your own words, in your own words. Okay, so tell us what led you to want to do it, first of all. And then how did you go about planning it and then getting it done?
Okay. Well, so I first wanted to go after the CBAP certification because, of course, when I looked up the IIB organization, I just wanted to see what certifications are out there for business analysts. Because to be honest, I wasn't aware of certifications the whole time I was going through the beginning stages of being a business analyst. I didn't know that there was a certification out there. As I started researching new certifications and things, I stumbled upon the IIBA and saw the certification. And I started looking at other business analysts to see if they had the certification. And a lot of them didn't. I didn't see that it was a job requirement. It just wasn't listed there. So I went back and forth asking a few business analysts that I knew that were seniors and a few project managers. What would you take? What weighs more, the PMP or the CBAP? And of course, a lot of people tried to guide me over to the PMP. However, I knew my current role and my current job is a business analyst. So I want to master my skill set first, and then I can move over into that realm and focus on that certification if I would like. But I want to master my skills and what I'm doing. Stay in my lane for just a second. So when I researched it, they were just making that change to expand the levels of the certifications. So when they had just had the CBAP, then they started changing it to the entry level, the ECBA, and moved on there. So I went ahead and I gauged what level I was at. I already had business analyst courses under my belt from college. So and then just the experience and the exposure that I was getting over the years, I said, okay, well, I'm definitely at the CBAP level. So this is the one I'm going to continue to aim for. Okay, so that's how I selected which level I was going to aim for, because I see some people asking a lot of questions. Which one should they take? So if you have no experience, of course, you need to start out with the entry level certification. Because if you try to jump in up to the CBAP, you're going to be lost. You're going to be lost. So that would be the first thing, assessing what level you're on. Be honest to yourself, be honest to your experience. So I knew I was at the CBAP. Once I realized that, I started looking up study habits for the CBAP or other people who took that exam. I didn't find a lot of information. I did find a few spreadsheets that people had created to where they had all the knowledge areas, all the techniques, all the processes, and basically like a matrix. And that wasn't that helpful to me because, of course, that wasn't helpful to me. So I had to start from scratch, start over. This isn't going to work for me. And what I did at that point is, and I can show this, I don't mind. I've used this brand of study guide books for a while. So it didn't work.
It worked?
It worked for the IDLE exam.
Oh, for the ITIL exam, it worked. Okay.
It worked.
Okay.
But for CBAP, I read the entire book, okay? And this did give me a great base knowledge of what it was all about. Absolutely, it did. Okay. It had a lot of knowledge in it that you could definitely apply to your everyday duties, and it did emulate information from the CBAP. The
Okay.
difference is that once I started trying to take practice tests, because this book has practice tests too, which related to the text and the contents in this book. However, once I started taking practice tests with Watermark Learning, I don't know if you've heard of them, but
Yes.
they are very popular with the IIBA,
Yes.
and most study groups and IIBA chapters offer like a 20% discount or so for Watermark Learning exams. So let's just say after I finished the CBAP book, I researched and read on practice exams that I could take. And Watermark Learning was one that I saw keep popping up.
Okay.
So I paid for the Watermark Learning CBAP practice exam.
Okay.
And there they break it down by knowledge area and they score you. So you can do drills or you can do a full out simulator exam. And I took it one knowledge area at a time, mastered one at a time. Once I got down to business analyst, planning and monitoring, went to the strategic analysis. There is so much content that you have to learn. It's not a definitions test, but you still have to go back and learn definition. Okay. Because you need to know their contents or their definition of what those terms mean.
So the IIBA's definitions of what the different terminology is.
Right, okay. Absolutely. So the Watermark Learning practice exam that I started practicing on, their exam was very, very similar to the experience that I had when I took the CBAP.
Okay.
So if there was any piece of knowledge that anybody could take from me, it would be to probably invest in the Watermark Learning practice exam, because the questions for a while, I mean, they were tripping me up. So, but I stayed the course and I stayed at it. And sometimes, you try to find a technique or the rhythm of the test, or how do they word certain things,
right?
And those patterns aren't really going to work for this exam.
Oh, okay.
Like the BABOK it was an easy read to me. However,
that's interesting. It's interesting that you say it was an easy read for you, because most people consider reading the BABOK some sort of nightmare. I'm just telling you. I hear people say that all the time. Oh my God, I cannot read the BABOK. If you have insomnia, read the BABOK. That's what I hear people say. But I find that the BABOK, while it can, it is wordy. Don't get me wrong, it is wordy, but it's also organized in such a way, and it follows a repeated pattern every single chapter, so that you can get used to it. So if you mean that the information was organized and it followed a pattern and that made it easy to read, then I totally understand what you're saying. But I'm gonna let you comment on what you meant.
Okay, sure. So for me, maybe it was from me starting off with this study guide. They really broke down what, of course you already know what knowledge areas are, but they really broke down knowledge areas, the elements, the tasks. They really broke down what the structure of the BABOK would look like. So when I saw the BABOK, it didn't intimidate me because I already knew the structure of it. When I read it, I knew exactly what I was looking for. I was looking for the knowledge area. I was looking for the tasks that were under those knowledge areas. And then under each task, there are elements, basically processes or steps, action items you take to complete that task, right? So I knew exactly what I was looking for when I looked at it. When I say easy to read, once I knew that layout and that format, it still was pretty easy because I related everything back to my job. Like, what am I doing in my job that relates to this? Okay. So the business analyst planning and monitoring, that first knowledge area, once you see that that's more of like a pre-project work, and you understand that concept and say, okay, well, do we actually do this? Because for me, we've done it, but we don't do it heavily, like really, really plan all of those things out, the like the governance and the change control stuff process, and those things are like already implemented in the organization. You already know what the approval process is going to be and what channels it's going to go through. So some of those things are just like, oh yeah, I get it, we do that, yeah, okay. And as I moved further along, when I got to, let's say, RAD, the requirements analysis, design, and definitions knowledge area, that is the chunk that is 30% of the exam. Well, that part was easy for me. I don't know why, but they say the first task is specify and model requirements. That just means write down document the requirements, and if you need to draw models or whatever you need to do in order for that stakeholder to understand the requirements that you're writing down, for your developers to understand. Once you break down what those terms really mean, and you can relate it to the BABOK. At first, when I read specify and model, it was throwing me off a little bit. And something I read, it was just saying, okay, well, this is writing the requirements. This is modeling the requirements. I'm like, oh, okay.
So you were already doing it, whether or not you understood the specific terminology that was used to describe it or not. But you were doing it.
Absolutely. Right. So I've read that it takes 2 to 3 times to read the BABOK. Okay. This is from some of the sites that I've looked at where you can order the exams from. They say it takes about 2 or 3 times to read the BABOK. To be honest, I probably read it about 2 or 3 times. Yeah. Did I think I was going to read it that many times? No. But even as I progressed and tested with Watermark, I was probably stuck at scoring about a 60 to 70, well, no, a little higher, maybe about 65% to 75% in certain knowledge areas. And to me, they should have been the easiest. The strategic analysis and the solution evaluation, I felt like I should have been scoring higher in those areas. But I had to realize that those areas were evolved heavily on techniques and models. So some areas are real process oriented, while others are heavy on technique and models.
Okay. And when you say techniques and models, are you saying that it was a bit heavier than what you normally do at work every day?
I wouldn't say that. I would say that the exam questions were heavier. So instead of them asking you a bulk of content of what you read about the process, they asked a lot of what techniques would you use for certain things, and you being able to interpret those techniques and models.
I see. So basically, they're wanting to know what kind of techniques would you use in this specific context. And you had to understand which specific techniques would work better for this situation versus that situation.
Correct. And just by reading the context of the question, if you know what knowledge area that was in, then you'll know how to narrow down your choices. Because if that wasn't a model or a diagram or a technique that was even discussed as usable in that knowledge area, then you would have to eliminate that. But there's 50 techniques.
Right.
So
yeah, that's a lot. Was that Was that overwhelming to you, the number of techniques that were there? I mean, because obviously every technique that's in the BABOK, we don't use on a daily basis. Some people have never used some of those techniques in the BABOK. Some people use mainly 4 or 5 techniques and that's it. Some people like to try out new techniques that they've never tried before. So how was that when you saw that many different techniques?
That was intimidating, of course. I thought, well, I probably won't need to learn every single one of these techniques. But when you start taking the practice exam, you're going to find a question that hits on every single one of those techniques. But yeah, but as you go and look over the techniques and read them, you'll realize that most of them are either self-explanatory or you have used them before. And the ones that you have not used, I mean, as a business analyst, you probably would want to learn them or at least know what it looks like, right? You don't necessarily have to use it in your work, but just know what it looks like. Because when you do that requirements, design, and definition, which is the largest portion of the test, it's going to be heavy on modeling and diagrams. And there's going to be a few that you're going to actually have to interpret, and answer. So it may actually do a few calculations as well. There are calculations.
Okay.
So there is an area when you're looking at the financial aspect, which falls under the strategic analysis portion. There's going to be a few things that they may ask you. It could be return of investment, or there's a few others I can't think off the top of my head right now. But yeah, so you do definitely need, and that would be in the technique section. In order to even see those formulas, it's embedded in the techniques. It's not in the content of that knowledge area.
Okay.
So that's why I personally saved the techniques for last. I read through the content and then I went back over the techniques separately. But I have seen where some people put the techniques in with each knowledge area while they're studying. So,
okay.
And one of the other things that I did too was I did sign up for a virtual study group. This was probably a year ago. So when I studied for this exam, it wasn't just all in one sitting. I first sat down with the BABOK. I first sat down with the study guide and read this first before I even read the BABOK. And once I took an hour a day after work, sat down and read as much as I could for an hour. And then I took the assessments behind each chapter. Once I completed this book, I still try to look for a virtual study group because you have to have professional hours in order to even sit for the exam. So most of the time, the way that you're going to get that is through the study group. Mm-hmm. So I did take a virtual study group with the Toronto chapter at the time because I was living in Raleigh, North Carolina. So I did a virtual study group with them, and they're always running their virtual study group. So,
so their virtual study group just doesn't stop. They just keep going round and round.
That's right. Yeah.
That's always interesting. That's really neat. That's interesting. So, yeah, you do need professional hours. There are multiple ways to gain those professional hours, as you said. You can get a lot of professional hours just by going to different events at the local chapter meetings. That's
right. Yep. Absolutely. So I went through that course, and everything didn't hit home right then, but it still was a start, and it still helped me break down certain areas of the BABOK, or it made me appreciate more that this content is way more than what I thought it was going to be. So after that, I put it aside for a little while because, of course, when we're not grasping everything right away, we get a little frustrated.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
so when I picked it back up, I said, okay, now I haven't read the BABOK, so now it's time to actually go to this VA book of knowledge and conquer that. And I read through that BABOK and signed up for Watermark and started taking the exams after I read every knowledge area. So I would read one knowledge area, take the practice exam, read the next knowledge area, take another practice exam. And when I was done reading the BABOK, I just went and just kept taking those tests. I mean, I probably did about 1,000 questions, honestly.
Yeah, you got your money's worth out of Watermark. But that's good.
I did.
That's good.
I did.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what it takes, because
yeah.
I mean, that's just what it takes when you're getting a professional level certification.
Mm-hmm.
You have to put in the work.
Yes, I agree. You have to put in the work. So was there any specific area that was like a major challenge for you?
A specific area in the exam?
Well, the exam or studying that specific area, either one.
Right. Well, of course you have life that takes its course, and you can figure out a plan and say that this is how you're going to study and this is the time frame you're going to study in, and life can take its course, and then you have to go back and start from the beginning sometimes and refresh yourself if you have a gap. So that happened with me, to where I had to basically start back from the beginning and reread. Also, every time I read the BABOK, I gained a new concept of the information. So that made me think I didn't have it all. So even up until the day I took the exam, I saw my test scores rising on the practice exam. I would say a minimum of an 80 in every knowledge area before you go sit for the exam. But that's basically kind of thumb rule for any exam. If you're not making an 80 or above in practice exams, you shouldn't even go sit for the real exam. But the information, it just kind of, I never felt like I had it all the way. Like, I'm going to master this thing. I'm the expert. They made this exam easy. You kind of, you answer the majority of them right, but it's tricky. It's a tricky one.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So they make a comment too about, they used to make a comment about the PMP. That was like, whatever is in the PMBOK, that's what you put on the test. Don't do what you would do. Do what the PMBOK says.
What, did you find that to be the same thing for this examination?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's why I say it's okay to read the study guide just to get the gist of what's going on and understand those knowledge areas. But if you want to pass the exam, you need to read the BABOK, because the questions are going to be sometimes even word for word from what was in the text of the BABOK, not your own understanding.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. I think a lot of us, once you get a little experience underneath you, you tend to make your own little modifications to how you do things or how you understand things. And so that is a thing that we have to watch out for, is to remember that we're taking a test based on a book.
right, absolutely. Yeah, and then just, finding people to hold you accountable and get into a study group or whatever you have to do to kind of keep pushing you along, because you don't want to set it down and get discouraged. Like, you have to keep pushing. Once you open it up and start studying, you have to keep pushing and push through, and reach out to other BAs who have the certification and just ask them a question if you get stuck. So,
Okay. All right, that's good. I mean, did you find that people that you reached out to, or if you did reach out to any, did you find that they were open to answering those questions?
oh yeah, definitely, definitely. They were more than excited to actually, express their knowledge and kind of put it into terms of what what they did on their job, because sometimes you want something tangible that you can relate it to. And they were happy to do that. Most people who have the certification are excited about it, and they're proud to have it.
Mhm. Yes, I
Yeah.
agree. The CBAP holders are very excited to have that certification. So, and I think it's a great thing. It shows that you care about what you do for a living. It shows that you are willing to invest in yourself so that you can be good at what you do. So I
Yeah.
am going to say congratulations again, Stephanie Aviles, on passing your CBAP exam on the first try. Yay.
Thank you.
Yay. And we are looking forward to seeing more great and wonderful things from you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me today.
Thank you so much for coming on and for being our co-host on BA Shop Talk today. And we are going to look for you once again, and we hope that you don't mind, but we will look for you once again. Thank you for sharing. And we will thank you everybody for watching. And that
Thank
is it for
you.
this evening. Thank you, Stephanie. Hi,
Thank
Tony.
you.
Good
Bye.
night here. And you guys have a good night. Until next time, this is BA Shop Talk and Annette Robinson. Bye-bye.